Laredo ISD Board of Trustees, Business and Support Services Committee meetings. Today is Thursday, July 14. It is 5:56 p.m. We're in the Amber Yeri boardroom, and roll call.
Dr. Celia Moreno.
Present.
Mr. Hector Noyola.
Here.
Mr. Jesus Martinez, present. Mr. Jose Valdez.
Present.
Mr. Ricardo Garza.
Present.
Mr. Hector Garcia.
Present.
And Mr. Jose Perez, that is not here. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Pledge of Allegiance, Mr. Garcia.
And the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a request to bring up an item. Sorry, let me get that number. This is item number 6. Do we have a motion to bring up item number 6?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Well, you're right.
You don't have to bring it up, you just bring it up.
So we'll bring up item number 6.
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. Item number 6 for the record is discussion and presentation by the Laredo Housing Authority on the housing units at Russell Terrace. Bear with me 1 second. We have several very special guests. I'd like to invite the chairman of the Laredo Housing Authority Commission, Mr. Jose Ceballos. I also would like to welcome the acting director, Mrs. Melissa Ortiz. I'll let you introduce the rest of the members of your group that are here. The bottom line is, Dr. Moreno and members of the board, we've been following the activities of the Laredo Housing Authority and specifically some of their recent initiatives that have began, I want to say, as early as January of 2016. There's been a different timeline. I know Mr. Ceballos will update us on that. But I just joined several of our staff at a Laredo Housing Authority meeting on June 28th, where there was action taken that was favorable for our cause. For the record, Mr. Ceballos, very respectfully, we understand how it works dealing with the state of Texas, dealing with Washington, D.C., and we respect the meticulous details that you have to go through in order to get things done. We have to do that as well. For the record, we wanted to say respectfully that we just want to have a high level of awareness on any activities that the Laredo Housing Authority might engage in that impact our students. We just want to have awareness so that we can partner with you, communicate to you any concerns we might have. And as I know that you've heard very clearly from many of the residents that you've been speaking to, I know that you've heard from our staff, obviously we have a concern if whether it's perception or reality that there may be one student leaving our district because of this activities that y'all are engaged in. Like I said, we want to know, and we don't mind telling you, we don't want to lose any of our students. Sure. We feel like we're in the best position to educate them, and it has implications on our budget. So I know I feel good about the conversations that you and I have had, along with your team and our team, and I appreciate your leadership, and we just wanted to allow a few minutes for you to kind of explain an overview of where you're at with this, with the Board of Trustees, and allow the trustees to ask any clarifying questions that they may have. So,
may I interject something, please? I think it's more than just the students. We're also very concerned about those families, because those families are part of our family, and we want them to know that we stand right behind them.
Yes, sir.
As far as I'm concerned, it's more than just the money or the students that we're losing. We're also very concerned about those families. They have been contacting some of us, and we want to know what the situation is.
Yes, sir. Sure. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Ceballos, like I said, for the record, the chairman of the Laredo Housing Authority Association Commission, and the acting director, Ms. Melissa Ortiz. Mr. Ceballos.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nelson. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us and giving us the opportunity to provide you an update. Joining us tonight is Bulmaro Cruz, who's our public housing administrator, Alma, who is part of our administrative team, and we have Ricardo Leanda behind us here. He's one of our attorneys assisting us with a variety of projects, and Mario Hasselbeck there. I know he's done work for the district in the past. He's serving as our general consultant specifically on these different projects that the Housing Authority is undertaking. So what I'd like to do today, I know you have a long agenda, is give you a little bit of background and then take some questions from you. My service to the Housing Authority as a commissioner started January 27th. So there are some actions that precede the current board, and I think that needs to be very clear. To your benefit and to the benefit of the community and the students of LISD, you have a number of advocates on the board now. We have 2 educators, we have 1 attorney. Myself, I'm a former employee of the Laredo Housing Authority. I know the business, I know what it is to put these deals together in terms of tax credit housing. I served around town doing a number of projects that are community related, so I am completely aligned with the vision that you projected in terms of being careful with what happens with a community. So last year, an application was submitted by a prior board to the state of Texas, where they wanted essentially to build a new project under state provisions under the Texas Department of Housing that would create 152 units. The complication arises, that's fine. The complication arises in that they applied for a category under an at-risk category, which made the demolition of Russell Terrace, a public housing development, made the application contingent on that demolition. So without meeting the demolition of 200 units, that other project, a tax credit project known as Casa Verde, would not be able to go through. Okay? So this precedes the new board. We walk in, we see, oh, this is ongoing. There's commitments, financial commitments in place. We begin conversations internally. We put out RFQs to hire consultants and attorneys, and particularly one attorney that's an expert on demolitions. In April 22nd of this year, HUT basically tells us that the application submitted in December of last year was rejected. It was saying basically that the units do not meet the threshold for the obsolescence threshold that would be required to demolish them. So what do? It gives us an opportunity to revisit whether that's the best move. We begin asking some more questions. We call the district. We find out that a lot of probably most of your staff is not aware of what's going on, or actually I didn't find a staff person that told me they were aware. So we realized you were not probably included in some of the conversations. Even though some of these items require public postings, I realized that there should have been more communication with the district. So April 22nd, we get this letter. I have concerns for the units. They're fully occupied. We had 2 hearings with them at the end of June. The residents are satisfied with the condition of the units. They're happy in that community. They value the schools, the economic development around the area, from panaderias, tortillerias, carnicerias, all the things that are part of the urban areas. So that's where we find ourselves. In June 30th, after having these public meetings with the residents where Dr. Nelson attended the last meeting, we actually had 3 meetings. We had 2 with the residents, and we had an official Board of Commissioners meeting. Essentially, an opportunity arose to submit through a separate program, it's called Rental Assistance Demonstration Program, called RAD. It basically would convert Russell Terrace into a voucher type program. That's project that's fixed within that location. So each unit would receive a voucher. It's converting it what is known as public housing into this project-based voucher program. So that's an opportunity that is there. We applied June 30th. We've had probably in the last, that's just a couple of weeks ago, probably 2 or 3 meetings already with HUT over the phone over that possibility. So what we did is we essentially applied to obtain 38 units for this new project of public housing, and 162 units conversion in Russell Terrace, with the idea and the intent that we would keep all 200 units in place. That commitment and that action has been taken by the Housing Authority. There's no question there. When we applied, the intent is to keep all the units in place. So today we learned that there's a preliminary award coming to us. After that award, we'll be able to negotiate the finance plan or percent finance plan, meet all the requirements for that. So the conversion essentially meets the criteria of demolition for the state housing program for that new project, and it also keeps the units in place. I didn't have to come to the district to realize the impact to the schools. I just asked how many students live there, how many people live there, and I knew you were going to be impacted if this was demolished. So, in a nutshell, we're in a process to convert Russell Terrace into a project-based voucher program. It's technical, but instead of being a public housing asset, we call them colonias here, it becomes a project-based voucher program. The residents there are not rescreened. They remain the same for the most part. Most of them will continue paying the same amount of rent. There's a few exceptions for people that pay a flat rent. That's technical. It's a technical matter. But if this happens, again, you preserve these tax credits that are going to help you build a new project, and you preserve the resident interest, you preserve the LISD's interest for both the students.
So who moves into the tax credit?
The 38 units, potentially 38 units are available for public housing. You really cannot force Russell Terrace residents to move there. They become available for public housing. That's a requirement based on the application that was made last year.
So there is a possibility that 38 families would move?
There is a possibility that if they choose to move, there is a possibility that can happen.
And if those
But
38 families move, do you get to bring others into that
you get to bring
rental?
others. Every year, we lose, through attrition, we lose families. About 8 families a month are moving in the Section 8 program. So next year in January, those 38 units we would have vouchers to assist them into moving into those units if that were the case.
But if it was people that were living at Russell Terrace, would you replace that house with somebody else or
Yeah,
nobody?
the unit is assisted because it's project-based. So the unit has assistance, and once you have assistance, you're going to place someone. So there's very little chance that you will have an assisted unit vacant because we have such a huge waiting list.
Can you confirm whether or not, by the way, I was born at 708 Locust, and my whole family lived there for, I guess, 20 years or so. Can you confirm if let's say those 38 families move, and I'm not sure if I understand the voucher program completely. At that point, I know the houses will not be demolished, but will they get renovated in any form? Then brought up to, let's say, your standards?
Yeah.
Very much
That's a great question. The conversion allows us to provide a renovation of the unit. So we're in that. That's actually going to be part of Mr. Hassel's job to help us identify those pieces that need to be renovated. You know, we've talked internally about air conditioning, electrical upgrades, the kind of thing, obviously reasonable. One of the things that was very interesting with this project, and I don't want to prolong this too much, but that project has a substantial amount of reserves. Well, about 3.4 million, if I remember correctly. So there's capacity there to leverage. If you want to enter into and actually we're entertaining a 4% tax credit, which is less competitive. It's actually not competitive. We can just go do that and renovate the unit. So that's a piece that's already integrated in the application, in the conversion application.
I thought it made sense, and I wasn't sure on the process. I thought, okay, they'll remove 38 families, put them in here temporarily, renovate 38 homes over here, and then bring them back and get another 38 families out and go through that process.
I think at one meeting I mentioned that, after a public meeting, that I thought that was a good alternative, is to do a rolling renovation. You could still do that within that same conversion program, but it may not be necessary to do that. And I told Dr. Nelson that if we needed to look at a new construction project within the district, so that we did that kind of setup, we would build the units so that we could have units to use for moving people in. So beyond this project, I'm very interested in urban development. I call it urban revival. I'd like to do more in that area. I grew up on Price. It's still the same district. It's a little bit of a ways, but I think you see what's happening, deterioration to our housing units. If we don't start, and this was 20 acres that was going to be flatland, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there's the potential of redevelopment, but so there's an opportunity here for everybody to win. Of course, we have timelines to meet. I'm not going to paint the most rosy picture because we're working with HUD and we're working with the state housing program, but we have the right team to help us through it. There are potentially Plan Bs if something doesn't happen. Demolition right now in terms of the board is not something that we're considering. We would actually have to prove to HUD that these units are in such disrepair because they've denied it. They've discontinued the application. So we would have to convince HUD that actually they're worthy of demolition, and it's hard. You're 100% occupied, you've got reserves, and the families are happy there. So anyway, I hope that's enough of an update for you to have some confirmation and some comfort in terms of how we're handling the
We
issue.
also wouldn't face having empty buildings, right?
No.
There's not a chance that, well, we're waiting for funding to be able to get anything done, so the building
Well-
sits empty.
Yeah, no, we would not set it up that way. No, and I don't want, to speculate about possibilities because there's still some work to be done. We just submitted the application on the 30th, and we already, today we got a preliminary email that we should find an award soon for those two apps. But there's still work to do. There's still a good 60, 90 days of work. We've got to be closing on projects by October, and that's a tough challenge, but we're working on it.
Is there any other questions?
No, I do want to thank you for coming and shedding some light on it. I had a conversation with you at a meeting that we were at for the Laredo Community College, and after that meeting, I talked to Dr. Nelson too. Says, I know that a lot of people had a lot of questions, and he assured me that you were looking for the best interest not only of the district but of the families
Sure.
in those areas. So I thank you for the work that you do for our community, and the rest of you too, because I know it's. I've worked with HUD. I've worked with all these things. I know there's a lot of red tape and things that we got to go through. And I mean, we're doing right now a project downtown with a plaza that we're working with HUD, and we had to go through all these things to get that to us, to do a $2 million facelift to it. So we're working on that.
Sure.
So I understand where you're coming from, but thank you very much for the
I
work
appreciate
that you're
that.
doing.
I want
being here.
to thank you very much, and I want to say that I appreciate the staff that's been communicating with us. I know they've been attending our meetings, so we'll continue to invite you and inform you as to any meetings and keep you informed.
Anybody else?
I have a question.
Questions? Yes.
So just real quick, really following up on Trustee Valdez's concerns that he made in the introduction, and perhaps you're not able to answer this emphatically, but is there a case, as I listened to your presentation, is there a scenario where you continue the momentum that you're building on this project, you're jumping the hurdles as they come, commend you for that, but I just want to make sure that there's not a finance situation where, because of the RAD program, the fees that or vouchers or however you pass the cost onto the resident, is there a chance that the residents' fees are going to go up? It's going to cost more for them to live in the Russell Terrace under your vision, under the RAD vision, as opposed to this other vision that was denied in December?
There's, under public housing, there's a opportunity for tenants to pay what is called a flat rent, and that's typically a fixed rent for a 3-4 bedroom. They can choose, and they don't have to worry about adjustments because their income changes. I don't know exactly how many, we might have 24 or so families. 9 families, so even less. So for those, there's no equivalent of a flat rent in the Section 8 voucher program. For everybody else, the calculation is essentially the same. It's 30% of their adjusted income based on how many children they have. If they're elderly, disabled, it's the same formula that's the basis for both public housing and voucher program.
All right, but for those nine families who have children, so they're school district children, we'll assume, they'll no longer be able to be on the fixed rent,
Right.
the flat rate. And so, based on the voucher program, they can anticipate an increase.
Potentially.
Potentially.
Potentially. I mean, they could be
Maybe
paying
not.
more if they,
Right,
if
right.
they lose the job. Because that's the thing. If you lose your job, you're still on a fixed rent. So for me, and I make this pitch to tenants if they ask me, is get on on the 30%, because you're able, if you lose your job or you're displaced for 2 or 3 weeks, you can go in and get an adjustment. And
You know,
and
the
pay a
other
little
question
less.
I had for you, which may be for your staff, I'm not sure, but are there current units in the Russell Terrace or the Richter, for the record, that are uninhabitable?
Not that I know of, but I'll let her add to that.
They're not in, I mean, we've scored in our physical assessments. For Russell Terrace, it was an 82. So
82?
they're not inhabitable.
Okay. You know, we hear stories sometimes of like, that some of them are uninhabitable. I'll just leave it at that. So we'll talk about that.
So maybe,
Well, if you hear that, let us know and we'll follow it up. We'll
Sure.
take care of that.
so maybe now that we've opened up our communication with you all, we can talk a little bit about some educational programs, after-school programs for the students a
Absolutely.
little bit later.
Absolutely, we'd love to have those conversations.
Last question, Dr. Moreno.
Yes.
Does this activity have anything to do with our elected representatives at the state and federal level? So like when I think of federal housing, I think of Washington DC, and I automatically go to U.S. Congressman Cuellar and his team that organizes grants and federal grants that come to this area. I think about Senator Zaffarini, I think about Representative Raymond. And are they involved with letters of support, any kind of communication on this?
That's the case, but probably where I would center my attention around is the policy, because the state policy actually encourages developers to move folks from areas that are low-performing schools into other areas. So that's, to me, that can be very problematic, because instead of assisting with the rebuilding, both educationally and otherwise, as you see with housing, I think you're hurting those areas even more.
Right,
So
further-
and that's a policy issue that can be addressed at the state level. On the federal level, the RAD, the conversion project, is actually a policy that's trying to move away from this idea that public housing is going to be funded, these buildings are going to be funded through operations forever. So they prefer to put a voucher system in place and and it's a demonstration project, right? So not everybody has RAD. You have to apply, and it's competitive, and there's waiting lists. So it's this idea that there may be a time where you don't have operational money, and every year there's a decrease in public housing op money. So from that standpoint, if RAD works well, that may be the way to go with some other public housing developments in our community. So I put more
Policy.
more on the policy side, because had we been following that policy in that the state is encouraging this movement, right? It impacted, that's why I'm here, actually, because an application was submitted prior to my service that encouraged that, and I don't agree with it.
And for the record, where our current public housing is located, whether it's Guadalupe, whether it's down south by Figueroa High School, Russell Terrace, those are not where, we don't have any low-performing schools in those areas. So I just wanted you to note that in your future thoughts.
And there are two educators that have already shared the idea behind, I mean, you could have, as they have explained to me, you could have a low-performing school that's doing better today than they were just last year, and you because of scoring delays and changes, they're still represented in a way that's not accurate or actualized.
Yes,
So-
sir.
Just a quick question. On the voucher system, the way I understand it, I might be wrong, but if I go and buy a apartment complex of 50 apartments, and I apply for the voucher program that I want my units to be in their voucher program, I don't have to be a Colonia. I can accept vouchers for my
Yes.
rental. So that takes you away from where you are, so you know what, I'm offering this property, I'm offering them out for vouchers, then they could, it's not going to stay within
Right.
the colonia that we have there. It's creating opportunities not only for the you all that actually have these homes for them, but now anybody that wants to invest can come and say, you know what, I'll buy a 50, and you know what, accept vouchers, because apartments are hard to find. In some apartments, they cannot fill them up, so they'll take voucher, but they have to apply
Yeah.
through federal programs
Hood.
to actually be,
Right.
to accept vouchers.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
sir.
you could lose them anyway, because if they get those 38 vouchers and say, you know what, I have vouchers, and they find they found something as nice or somewhere else, they can use that voucher to go somewhere else. Just
Mr.
to let
Garcia,
you all know.
what I want to
I
clarify.
think, I'm not sure.
That after a year, they do have an option to go somewhere else, but you still have assistance in that unit.
Yeah,
So-
you still can use,
Yes,
they'll
it's
give vouchers
because
for
the-
somebody else for that union,
Right,
right?
exactly. So you're going to move somebody else, and they're going to be,
Somebody else is going to take their place.
correct.
Mr. Ceballos, Melissa and staff, thank you for being here. I have one question. Is state funding for these projects competitive?
For which
To
project?
get fundings for this,
The new project,
Yes,
Casa
sir.
Verde, it's competitive, yes.
and you have good hopes that you can get funding for the Russell Terrace?
Well, the Russell Terrace is not a state housing program. That's coming directly from HUD. That, the new Casa Verde project that made the demolition contingent, that's a state program, and that's competitive. That tax credit award was acquired competitively. But the RAD conversion, that's a federal initiative directly through HUD. There's no state involvement, at least not in the conversion.
How are you doing with the tax credits?
Well, I mean, that's where we are. We're trying to preserve those tax credits that have been allocated to Casa Verde, and one way outside of demolishing is this conversion, so that's...
Have
that's
they
where
been
we-
canceled?
No, the tax credits have not been canceled. There's an extension in place through October.
Very good.
Thank you.
So we are expecting to see some families leave in October, move?
They will have an option. They'll have an option, and only because they're...
But you don't have additional money to pay for the rent.
Well, the conversion, again, it was 2 applications. We applied for 38 units in Casa Verde with public housing assistance. So technically, they could go, if they wanted to go to Casa Verde, you could have 38 families go to Casa Verde.
Right, but do you have the money to pay for the 38 that
Yes,
are
that's
moving? And the
part-
38 that are going to come back and replace
Yes.
the existing housing?
Yes. Well, it's 38 and 162. We have, the difference, the other 38 units, that we're still determining how HUD's going to treat those units, right? But our idea is we're going to preserve them.
The 38 families will have a choice of going to Casa Verde or getting a voucher and go to wherever they want.
They cannot get a voucher until after a year. The program allows them to move on. If they decide to move on from a RAD project, in this case, let's say Russell Terraces, the conversion's completed, they can only do it after a year. They cannot simply, leave.
Good.
But bottom line, we should not see a drop in enrollment.
You shouldn't see a drop in enrollment. And if something changes where these 38 units, I'm letting you know that there's going to be a plan to replace 38 units.
38.
That's how we're moving ahead. We hope, I mean, keep in mind, if we hadn't done this, we'd have a deficit in housing stock and in affordable housing. And you're demolishing 200 units, there's a provision that allows for tenant replacement vouchers. You'd be out, the students. You'd have to wait until that area would be redeveloped. So this is, I mean, an option that's, like I said, if we're successful, it's going to be a win-win for most people. The timing is just the critical part right now.
Dr. Nelson, can you be prepared, or ask staff to be prepared regarding any changes that might occur that might affect this, in order for us, if 38 families leave, students, if we get affected, is there such a thing as a tax or a credit that we might be able to get from the state, or a voucher system that we might be able to get from the state that does not affect our ADA monies?
Absolutely. Our plan is to continue to work very closely with LHA, and we appreciate getting caught up to speed. I'm not sure why we weren't in the loop before, but I feel very confident that we will
I really appreciate
explore
that. I
Mr.
do.
Garza's concerns and anything we can do to help Mr. Ceballos and ultimately our families.
Mr. Valdez?
Yes, I also want to thank you, Mr. Ceballos, for coming in these discussions. I wanted to make sure that people understand that the issue here is not only the children or the families by themselves, but the community. I know it sounds very simple, but it's not that simple. When we talk about choices or options, unless people know what is at stake, how can they make a decision? In other words, you either take this or that. Sometimes you have to do that because we're limited by the resources, the funds, and so on. But all the way from the national level, Secretary Julian Castro of HUD has been highly criticized for allowing the people in Wall Street to get those mortgages from people that are losing houses at a very low level. And this, what this does, it brings up the topic that something may not be right over there. Some people talked to me and we discussed the human element involved in this. Those families there have their social sets, which are just as important as anybody else's. And when decisions are made, you just simply move them over here, move them over there. Or just a minute. No, I understand. We're clarifying those things and we're letting people know that that's not the case. Sometimes you have to make hard choices and tough decisions. But that's where this is coming from, that they need to know. And when we speak here, a message goes out and people understand. And I want to thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me. One last comment. I think with the opportunities we have here is you have a board that understands the implications. And, not going to get into details of the service of other folks on that board, but I question the thought, who spoke up for the residents in the community? That's an important piece.
I want to add one little thing. For many, many years, I and others have been involved in this type of situations. And I'm glad you have Mr. Ricardo de Anda here because we've been involved in a lot of issues when both of us still had hair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, guys.
Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Dr. Moreno. That brings us to our first couple of agenda items that involve item number 1 is discussion and presentation to approve and or ratify the monthly disbursements for May 2016 at the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees, July 2016. And item number 2, which is discussion and presentation to approve monthly reports and or other updates reports, including unaudited financial statements, donations reports, tax collection reports. Our Chief Financial Officer, who celebrated a birthday on Monday, so we want to wish her a happy birthday, will take us through these 2 agenda items. Ms. Ayala?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Good evening, Madam Board President, Board of Trustees. I'll begin with item number 1. And the total cash disbursements recorded were $20.5 million, of which $15 million were used for wages and benefits, and $5.5 million for the payment of goods and services. May I proceed, Madam?
Yes. Yes.
Thank you. Item number 2, we have the highlights of unaudited financial statements. Under gifts and bequests, donations for the month of May were recorded at $40,000 with $109. $40,109, sorry. The fiscal year-to-date donations were recorded at $144,277. Under our revenues for the general operating fund, the month-to-month comparison, We recorded for the month of May $19.7 million, which is 14% or $2.4 million when compared to May 2015. Then we have the year-to-date comparison. The year-to-date comparison stands at $167.4 million, which is 9% or $13.2 million more when compared to the same period last year. Next, we have the tax collection summary. The September to May collections were recorded at $26 million, which is 92% of our budgeted amount of $28.2 million. Then we have the October to May collections recorded at $25.8 million, which is 90% of the adjusted opening levy of $28.4 million. Here we have expenditures by object. For the month-to-month comparison, for May 2016, we expended $20.2 million, which is 5% or about $1 million more compared to May 2015. Then we have the fiscal year to date comparison. Total expenditures, $162.1 million, which is 6% or $9.8 million more when compared to the same period last year. Here we have those same expenditures by function. We spent $101.6 million in instruction. That's about 63% of total expenditures, followed by plant maintenance and operations in the amount of $16 million, which is about 10% of total costs. Here we have other financing sources and uses. For May 2016, we had $17 million that were utilized, which is about $15 million more when compared to May 2015. Under the administrative cost ratio, the standard being 11.05%, our amended budget contains 8.02%. The fiscal year to date ratio stands at 6.17%. Here we have in summary format the general operating fund, Fund 199. The time lapsed is 75%. So we look at our revenues. We have earned revenues about 82%, which is above the 75%. And on the expenditures, we have used 83%, but that has to do to the timing of expenditures. Most of the costs are incurred within the first 10 months. Not that we're behind, we are within budget.
So why are we dipping into fund balance at that point? I mean, I realize
right.
because the revenues aren't in.
Correct.
But once the revenues come in, that won't happen?
Exactly, we adjust the unassigned fund balance at that point in time. Generally, when we close the year, that's when we reconcile all numbers.
Can you go back? You move this.
To the ratio?
Well, no, yes, to the one we were looking at, where it showed 60 instead of 62.
Here,
Wait.
yes.
Where's
Right.
the fund balance?
The very bottom.
Yes.
Yes, when we prepared this financial statement, when our revenues are below our expenditures, we use fund balance for cash flow purposes. But at the end of the year, once we reconciled our revenues, that's where we restore the unassigned fund balance. You're right.
But do you reimburse with the interest of the money that was taken out?
Well, no,
Or
it
just-
hasn't been taken out, it's all,
Or it hasn't been
It's all
taken?
cash flows, working capital.
Well, yeah, but if you don't have the cash flow there, you're moving it somewhere else to spend it, right? Yes or no?
I don't understand.
If you're using it from
Unassigned fund balance,
right,
from this pot of money that we have.
and you're moving it somewhere else to fill that gap until everything comes in?
For financial purposes, yes.
Oh, just for financial purposes?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. So you're
For
not...
presentation.
I'm just thinking if you're taking, it's just a wash, but the
No,
interest,
no.
when you're returning it back to where it originally came from.
Right, the interest, our cash and investments continue earning interest,
Okay.
and it's recorded in the revenues.
A quick question, and not to look at it. In our projection, our projection for our budget from last year, on what you projected that we would collect tax-wise and all that, how close did we come to that?
We're going to be a little bit under. Well, under because of the additional homestead exemption.
Okay?
Yes, we're not going to receive it under local, but we're going to see it in the state revenues. And we're a little bit under on the amount anyway. Last year we were a little bit under our budgeted amount, yet the tax office and our delinquent tax attorney
And how
continues
much
to
are we going to
collect.
be, how much are we going to be under projected revenue from attendance based on what attendance didn't do this year?
At this point in time, it's high,
Ballpark.
in the 90s, 95% maybe. It should be high. I do have a historical, I know Dr. Moreno had that question last month, and I did prepare a report on the delinquent tax collections. I thought I brought it with me, but I don't see it.
Also, while you're
I can
looking
share
up
that
that,
with you.
while
So
you're
you-
looking up that document, I wanted to respond to Mr. Garcia's concern about attendance on ADA financially, which is weighted and has different weights. We did not meet our goals for ADA.
That's what I was saying, how
Yeah,
much are we
that's-
going to be short?
I can get you the detailed report. It's kind of hard to calculate because every kid is weighted.
Right.
But we can give you some figures that say, based on our projections, here's where we came in at.
That speaks to us paying more attention to making sure that students are marked at risk, if they are at risk, making sure that
The
all
weights.
at-risk students
Hallelujah, thank you, what I've been
are
asking for a year,
recorded, that
2 years
students
now.
who have other reasons to be weighted are properly indicated.
Yes, ma'am.
And I really think we need to make sure that we don't have schools rejecting students from enrollment. And I don't think we have a way of stopping that at this point. I
Well,
think
it's-
everybody
it's,
is...
At the end of the day, what I've been saying, at the end of
Yes.
the day, and that's what we get excited about, but at the end of the day, it affects us financially.
Well, and I hear this from the board loud and clear. This is so clear. Dr. Moreno's been speaking this for years.
Yes.
And so I understand, and we really do need to do a better job of not allowing principals to not accept students. And principals would argue a list of reasons on why, right, Ms. Cortez? I mean, they'd argue a list of reasons that really don't hold any weight up here. They don't hold any weight. So the other thing I would say to respectfully add to your comments is to prepare for the legislative session. It is undeniable, it cannot be disputed that students that are at risk, students who from low socioeconomic backgrounds need more funding.
That's right.
There's no way you can, I'm looking at the state and then our legislature's like, you can't fund us the same as you fund Highland Park. With all due respect to those blessed kiddos in Highland Park. If you're 92% poverty, you have to have more weight on your students. So I agree with you.
I agree with you, but the only thing with that is that something that we have no control over. That's something we can lobby, we can talk to, but we still don't have control over. In attendance, we do have control over that because
Point
we
well
just have to
taken.
do a better job of it. I understand when you've been fighting it, and I'm right behind you because it's right. We're not being funded the same way. But that's a fight that we've already lost back after year after year after year.
It's legislative, right.
Attendance is a fight that we're losing among ourselves.
Internally, right, right.
Exactly.
Point well taken. So both of those need to be taken. We'll definitely take the internal comments, but as we prepare to go to this legislative session, I would just encourage the school finance system, albeit admittedly, the Supreme Court says they admit it needs improvement. Well, for us, it's the weights.
Yeah.
And if you have at-risk students, 77%, 92% poverty, we think the funding formula should change. So, point well taken.
Yes.
Many times we look at this and begin to wonder, if we really have a commitment and a concern that we're not getting adequate funding, how do you justify that we got millions in reserve? We don't use them for that. In other words, we say, we will provide the service that these children need, and these students need, only if the legislature funds us, and since they're not funding us supposedly adequately, we won't provide the services. And you turn around and we have a lot of money on the side. You know?
The money
So,
that we have-
Yeah, I have a comment on that.
Yes.
Calmation. See, this is one of the arguments that was raised
I'm listening.
when we had that big drop in funding, that there were, I don't know how many billions, was it billions?
Yes.
7 billion, I believe.
4.
4 or 5 billion that school districts had in reserves that they were not using for education. That money was for education, and that includes the money that we have on the side. So what's that money doing? It's earning interest. All that money is supposed to be used for education, but we will not touch a penny to aid these students that need it, because the legislature won't give us any more money.
Our fund balance has not increased. We have been spending almost every penny that we have been receiving. We have not been saving and saving and saving. The other thing is that we do have to have a
For
fund
policy.
balance.
By policy.
Suppose this housing issue takes away
How much?
all these students that they can't take away. What are we going to do? Are we going to be,
We can debate that forever, but the point
So-
is this, the point is, you know, how can we ask for more money when we have money on the side over there?
the money that
Now,
we have is...
In other words, it gets to be
To operation.
a political issue at the state level. If money is what we need to address the needs of these special students, what are we waiting for? We got millions over there. What is it, 60-some million?
Yes,
They're
sir.
not dedicated? And
sir.
we're saving it for a rainy day. It doesn't rain in Laredo. And let me tell you, if it ever
It
does
does
rain...
financially.
If it ever does rain, okay, that money is not going to take us anywhere. And this whole situation about having 3 months of money supply, that's merely cash flow. It's not to sustain a school district. God forbid if we have a catastrophe or whatever, 3 months of reserve monies are not going to carry this district. What happens on the 4th month? We're dead. So the money is not for that. The money is for cash flow purposes, okay?
But it's for responsible spending, not for just to spend. You gotta be responsible. We have been. Everybody has been. And I know we have to keep, I was just asking, I thought it was 3 months, but you have to keep 2 months, which is only 40 to 60 million.
2.5. You know, the other question, I'm sorry. I apologize, go ahead.
No, that was my point. If I was a state legislator,
You would've
and I never got a chance, and somebody comes to me, I need money, well, you got money, what are you talking about? Well,
Don't run for that.
The other thing I wanted
that's why we have Ted Cruz and all those people that they're saying, you know, that there's something strange going on in the country, because we continue asking for money when we have money on the side and we don't spend it. Well, that's one of the issues.
Point well taken.
Thank you.
The other thing I wanted to clarify, just in the interest of a community issue, so we know that the county is experiencing a deficit, and one of the things I learned is that they have done away with the 3-2-1 exemption.
Right.
They are not, and my question for
Recommending to
council
do
is or for finances, do we have that exemption?
Yes, it's
Yes,
not
sir.
an exemption.
It's an early
a
payment
discount on your
Credit,
taxes.
okay.
If you pay your taxes the first month, you get 3% discount.
So I just think we need to communicate that to the community, that we're able to sustain that,
Yes, sir.
because that provides a benefit to our taxpayers.
Yes,
Since the
homeowners.
School district froze.
And this board could take that away with a vote pretty
Correct.
quick.
Yes, sir.
Let me tell you, now we're going to the taxpayers, but
I should
forget it.
Get it going.
And I'm one of them, okay? But let me tell you, there was a time in this community, and perhaps even in the whole nation, when people said, we won't move unless the federal government comes in with the money. The state of Texas does that also, okay? And yet we have the resources here. I think I made my point, okay? Stop saying that we need money because we got money.
We have it because we've taken care of it.
Yes, ma'am.
We've been listening to Mr.
And
Valdez.
what's that money doing? It's
Want to
ridiculous.
spend it.
It would have
It
all
is
been gone.
ridiculous, you know, we make millions in interest and we pump it back in again into more
10 years
money.
ago, there was an
Right,
article that
we
came out in the
program.
paper that
Talk
we
about
program
Mr.
it.
out of
Grange.
money
Spend-
because the board went wild on spending. 10 years ago.
2005.
12 years ago, front page, LIZ is going broke because they spent too much money. They were spending like wild wildfire to the board, another board came in and settled that down, and you were part of that other board that came in to settle that down, but if not, they'd be broke, then what?
The credit agencies really look at these numbers very closely.
Yes, sir, I'll bring you the
They
article.
went broke for other reasons, and you know that. They didn't have the resources we have.
Right.
No
Yes.
tenían.
Thank you, Ms. Ayala. May we proceed, Dr. Moreno?
Yes.
Thank you. Ms. Ayala, would you continue with the presentation, please?
Stop talking about money.
Next, we have the child nutrition program at revenues earned, about 90% of the budgeted amount. And then expenditures, they spent about 85% of their budgeted amount. A little bit higher, again, first 10 months, that's where we incurred most expenditures. Under the E-rate, revenues earned about 50% of what we anticipated, and expenditures, very little expenditures at 18% of the budget. Here we have the athletics fund, Fund 181. We've exceeded the budgeted amount of revenues by about 2%, which is about $6,000. The expenditures, we've spent most of the original budget at 91% of it.
Quick, just on athletic, are we gonna have at the meeting next Thursday, a recommendation on what we asked about, meals, so it's part of our budget? We asked for it to come for the next meeting.
No later than August. No later than August, but yes, we'll have a
We're already
preliminary.
traveling, our kids are traveling by then.
Okay.
That's what we wanted to do by the end of July.
Okay, we'll take, yes, we'll
Please.
bring some type of update.
I think, or whatever.
We'll bring several options.
Give them per diem.
For our debt service fund, 511, total revenues collected, 92% of the original budget of 26.8, followed by expenditures, we've only expended 18%. We do have a final payment in August, and that's where you see the full expenditures being recorded. Next, we have the special revenue funds. Any questions? We do have the Director of Federal Programs that can assist in answering those questions.
So who has looked at those federal monies that we got for those schools where they weren't being spent?
Good evening, members of the board. Dr. Nelson. On the SIG grant, these balances don't reflect some current payroll transactions, but Martin High School has already exhausted the whole amount.
Okay.
Cigarroa High School is down to $1,300 that they'll be using next week to pay teachers to attend professional development. Nixon High School is down to about $5,000.
Lamar?
Lamar is down to $6,000.
Good.
Cigarroa Middle, $13,000 that they'll be using the week of August 8th through the 11th for professional development. And
I think we need to make sure we continue to help them spend it, prioritize that they use these funds first and then
yes,
whatever else they have.
yes,
Are
and
we
next year
losing
we'll
it?
do it differently.
Ms. Cortez, are we losing anything in 16, 17? Or getting any new money, or?
The campuses should be getting money, we just don't know how much.
We don't know yet. We haven't.
We
got
don't know
any
yet.
numbers yet.
Priority and focus schools should be getting money.
How about Sanchez Ochoa?
Sanchez Ochoa is down to about $7,000.
They need to.
So the goal is that they spend all their money by August 31st, and we're monitoring that.
Otherwise, they end up sending it back.
Yes, ma'am.
Right. No, we don't want to send any money back.
When does school start?
Okay,
When does school
thank you.
start? When does school start?
August 22nd.
Oh, so we still have till August.
That's the day.
Sorry.
Lastly, we have the summary of construction funds. Any questions on those balances? May I proceed, Madam Board President? Item number 3, discussion and presentation on the following budget amendments. BA number 1516-47, discussion and presentation to approve the capital projects increase by $37,826.
Where does that 37,000 come from that's going to go into 616?
We are adjusting the budgets based on the actual interest earned under those series. It's just
So the
procedural.
money's already under the 616?
Yes, ma'am.
It's just being appropriated.
Right, we're adjusting the appropriations to the actual
Okay.
amounts. The total budget amendment net increase is in the amount of $155,711. Item 3B, BA 1516-46, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $72,209 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories. Then we have 3C, BA 1516-48, discussion and presentation to approve the general operating fund budget amendment in the amount of $7,500 as a result of transfers between functional expenditure categories from the Board of Trustees discretionary funds.
We need to make an adjustment, Dr. Moneto, on that one. It actually will be printed on our consent agenda for $14,500 total. We're adding $7,000 to what's already been presented by Ms. Ayala. And that's from Trustee Noyola. Is allocated $3,000 for Cowas Back to School Professional Development in August, $2,000 to Alma Pierce for Back to School Professional Development in August, and $2,000 to Ryan Elementary for Back to School. So that'll bring that total to $14,500.
Item 4, discussion and presentation to approve and award the following bids, proposals, quotations, and contracts. Item 4A, renewal, RFP number 13-018. This is for the self-funded medical and prescription drug benefits. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Blue Cross Blue Shield at an estimated amount of $20.4 million.
Quick question, did we ever, and I don't remember because I'm getting senile, did we ever talk to the insurance about our athletic insurance to see if we could cover it within the same, remember we had talked about it?
Yes.
Did we?
Yes.
Remember?
Sure. I'm Randy McGraw with Hub International, and a few weeks ago, the district reached out and asked, if it was feasible or even possible to self-insure your student accident insurance program. And I would say the first answer is it possible? The answer, sure, you could do that.
Is it feasible?
Is it feasible? Based on the relative risk, there's two components in the benefits of the student accident program. Part of it is a death benefit if a death occurs, and that would need to be fully insured inside the program. So in order to pay a death benefit and not make it taxable, you need to use life insurance, and that could be arranged. The other part is there's a schedule of benefits that are paid on certain types of injuries up to certain limits. It's not a catastrophic risk like your health plan is. So it would be fairly easy to administer. The other thing, though, excuse me, in looking at your premiums that you've been paying and the losses historically, my thoughts are that you might save 5 to 8% per year, but that's not, we're not talking millions of dollars, we're talking tens of thousands. And when you look at your loss history, there's some years where you've had large losses and some years where you haven't. So you could do it. I think in the long run, it would marginally outperform your fully insured arrangement, but I wouldn't want to lead you astray and think there would be anything more than maybe an average of 5 to 6% savings.
Thank you. Throw that out.
So just so we're clear before we move on item 4A, based on our Health Insurance Committee meeting that we had prior to this meeting, we're recommending to stay with Blue Cross Blue Shield at an estimated cost of $20,404,474. And so, okay.
Thank
May we
you, Dr.
proceed? Ms. Ayala?
Item 4B, this is also a renewal by board.
So, I'm sorry, I'll just go back. When we put this on the agenda, will it be a little more specific?
Yes.
Yes, it'll include
It's
Blue.
not here
On the
yet.
consent, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Item 4B, renewal by board co-op vendor number 406-12. This is for accelerated reader, star reading, and web hosting licenses. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to Renaissance Learning for an estimated amount of $119,844. Item 4C, renewal, Region 1 Purchasing Co-op vendor number 14-02-12, staff development and instructional materials. The evaluation committee recommends renewal of the contract to teacher-created materials for an estimated amount of $100,000. Item 4D, a renewal, U.S. General Administration Co-op number GS-07F-127BA. This is for the Visitor Management System and Monitoring Services upgrades. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Raptor Technologies for an estimated amount of $40,000. Item 4E, renewal, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program, South Texas Co-op number 16-05-17. This is for bread products. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Flowers Baking Company for an estimated amount of $124,248. Item 4F, renewal, Region 1 Nutrition Program, South Texas Co-op CMP-STC number 16-04-16, and this is for the janitorial supplies, paper, and plastic products. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Devon Distributing and Packaging, Labatt Food Service, Cisco Central Texas, Gulf Coast Paper Company, M&Q Packaging, Oliver Packaging and Equipment, and Econ Opac, Inc. for an estimated amount of $850,000. Item 4G, renewal, Region 1 Child Nutrition Program, South Texas Co-op number 16-11-03. This is for the United States Department of Agriculture's processed foods. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Advanced PR Foods, Alpha Foods, Genio Turkey Store, JTM Provision, MCI Foods, Nardone Bros Baking, National Food Group, Tyson Prepared Foods, for an estimated amount of $1,148,569. Item 4H, renewal, request for proposal number 15-021. This is for painting materials and supplies. The Evaluation Committee recommends renewal of the contract to Sherwin-Williams for an estimated amount of $70,000. Item 4I, RFP number 16-017, repair of appliances and kitchen equipment. The Evaluation Committee recommends a contract to VMW Maintenance for an estimated amount of $30,000. Item 4J, Region 1 South Texas Co-op vendor number 14-03-18. This is for dairy and juice products. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Hygeia Farms Dairy for an estimated amount of $3 million. Item 4K, request for competitive sealed proposal number 16-012. This is for the LISD Veterans Field Parking Lot reconstruction. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Ozar Services for an estimated amount of $500,000.
Quick question, on the presentation that you all made to us day before yesterday, it was for 467,000 something. Why did it jump? I remember numbers.
I'm going to ask our Executive Director of Plant Facilities and Support Services, Mr. Angel Velasquez, to respond to that concern. Mr. Velasquez?
No, the actual amount, you're correct, is 471,692.
Why are you asking for 500?
It's just, I guess, procurement.
That will adjust it.
Yeah, but the actual amount is 471,000.
actual budget was 500. Will you adjust that to make sure that that's $30,000 that we can use for something else?
Yes, sir. we'll adjust it.
Like travel for meals for the athlete.
Travel and meetings, that's right.
Different
kids.
functions. Anyway, item 4L, Texas Multiple Award Schedule, co-op vendor number 12-78030. This is for Marquis. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Science Plus for an estimated amount of $100,000. Item 4M, RFP number 16-024 for the Energy Consultant Services. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Marco A. Arredondo for an estimated amount of $3,000. Item 4N, RFP number 16-021. This is for library, magazine, and periodical subscriptions. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to WT Cox Subscriptions, PTP Magazines, and Avanti Enterprises for an estimated amount of $25,000. Item 4O, TASB Buy Board Co-op vendor number 40612 and 407-15, library books and media materials number 406-12, and instructional materials number 487-15. Goodbye Purchasing Co-op number 16-176F000. This is for the Division of Curriculum and Instruction. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding the contracts to all of those vendors listed. Do I need to pronounce each one? Nope. The total amount is at $300,000. And we have 4P, RFQ number 2016-001. This is for financial auditing services. The Evaluation Committee recommends awarding a contract to Weaver and Tidwell for an estimated amount of $168,000, which is for a 3-year period. Number 5 is tax refunds. Staff recommends approval of all the refunds. Dr. Nelson?
Thank you, Ms. Ayala. May we proceed, Dr. Moreno? Item number 7 is discussion and presentation on the 2016-2017 district and campus improvement plans. Dr. Moreno, members of the board, our staff has been working with the campuses and the various departments for several months now on our 2016-2017 district improvement plan and various campus improvement plans. As you are well aware, we really had to wait to complete these plans until we received our spring 2016 data to really make sure that any activities, changes, and updates are aligned. You have received a draft of the district improvement plan and the campus improvement plans, either on a CD or however you requested it. And what we would like to do now is just open the window for you to review those, forward any comments or questions to my office that we can answer so that we can consider for possible action in the month of August.
Could you tell us right now, do you indicate on these what the goal is for the performance of each of those STAR exams? Remember, for last year, we said 65 was our goal.
Yes, ma'am. That is
our goal for this next year slightly higher than 65?
yes, for each subject, each discipline, the state standards are changing, and we've noted that in the plan. And so where it's gone up, we've adjusted our goals accordingly.
And if it didn't go up, we didn't go up.
Well, it depends on our performance. It depends on the performance that we had.
Okay. So in order to find out, I need to go through the plan to know what...
Or we can give you a summary of where the changes are on how we identified our goals, according to the state standards.
Did we go down in any of them?
On our expectations for the campuses?
On our goal for as a district?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Well, I'd like to see that we go up.
Right, we're not going backwards.
Percentage
No,
point.
and actually, Dr. Moreno, Dr. Nelson, the goals, the actual goals in here are not going to be reflective of the data because we got the data after the document was
So when
printed.
do
So
we
we're
get
going to have to go back between now and the final printing in August to update the targets and the goals to reflect the new data that just was released, and to update strategies to be reflective of that.
So shouldn't the board be approving those goals?
Yes, ma'am, they'll approve those, that's when it will come to you in August for your
So
approval.
really, thank you for the clarification, Mr. Ramirez. So you have a draft, and it does not have the most recent data attached to it. We will go over every goal and provide a summary to you, but in the meantime, you can start asking questions about the document since it's so thick. Any other comments or questions regarding agenda item number 7 for this evening? If not, may we proceed?
Yes.
Item number 8 is discussion and presentation on the 2016-2017 proposed annual budget. We have several members from the Finance Department here, including the members of the Director of the Tax Office and the Director of Finance, Ms. Edith Pettis, and of course our Chief Financial Officer. They've been working very hard to coordinate a balanced budget presentation according to our timeline that we presented in October of 2015. I'm so very proud of their work, and I appreciate all of our departments who have worked to meet the challenges of limited funds again this year. What we would like to do tonight is, in lieu of a scheduled budget meeting for Monday, July 25th, our Finance Department is pretty much ready to present a balanced budget, but we're waiting on last-minute tax information that we will be receiving at the end of July. And so we would like for this presentation to count for the July 25th meeting that was on our schedule. So you have a presentation that looks like our normal workshop. It begins with the review of the timeline. You'll see that we changed from July 25th to today for our budget update. And then I would like to turn your attention to page 3 of this, which is entitled Estimated Revenues and Expenditures. It should be a familiar document. And I'm going to ask our Chief Financial Officer to go over the highlights of this artifact, and then we'll move forward. Ms. Ayala?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. The last time we presented the worksheet was back in May, and we made several changes to our revenues. In our local sources, we increased it by $100,000. We are acquiring a new program for the Head Start program, and so that warranted us increasing those revenues coming in by $100,000. Then, for the state sources, we adjusted that amount more or less because of our ADA. We're using an assumption of $22,200. Last month, we presented an assumption that included $22,300. So that and for the federal revenues, we increased it by $260,000, and that's due to the SHARS reimbursement program. We feel that we can increase that reimbursement amount. Also, the indirect cost, we feel that we can generate at least an additional $60,000. So our total revenues estimate stands at $2.3 million. Then we have expenditures. The last time we presented, we had not downloaded or dropped all the information that the campuses had inputted into the system, and so this is the product of all the inputting and the allocation of all costs. So the board-approved wage increase is already reflected in here together with the insurance, and that change is cost the budget $4.3 million. Under contractual services, it increased by $467,000, which is driven by the E-rate services going up. The board did approve that cost to go up. For supplies and materials, $1.2 million. We did increase some of the direct costs for several programs because some of the campuses did not have sufficient funds to support their staff, supplemental staff.
I think at some point, is this something maybe that the internal auditor can look into because we're spending 7.6 million on materials and supplies. It already was kind of high. We continue to just go up and up. At least identify some things that we would want to look at. You know, we want to make sure that we're spending, whatever money we're spending.
Meet the cost requirements. And yes, the thing, what happens here, Dr. Moreno, is that we need to cut staff. It's all in staff, supplemental staff, mostly.
Wait a minute.
Yes.
Supplies and materials is all in staff? Is that what you're
No,
saying?
the cost allocate, the formulas in the special populations have to, we adjusted those in order to get some of the schools out of the red. So
Your
some
point on,
schools,
your point on materials and supplies is well taken. It has continued to go up. When you add staff, you add extra class size reduction teachers, you add extra positions in athletics, you add, well, then they get more supplies. They request more supplies. So I definitely think our auditor can look for spikes and trends that need to be alleviated.
Or at least maybe show us how does this compare with other districts? 'Cause
Comparative
we don't know
analysis,
if
that's
this
another.
is way out of line.
we do, and we do spend a little bit more because you have technology in here. And also, we increase the cost for materials and supplies for maintenance and operations, which the board approved those costs. It was
Added all those
300,000.
custodians. So if
And
you
that
add
would be in payroll.
custodians, then you,
Yeah.
well, but my point is, if you add more custodians, then you're going to clean more. You clean more, then you need more supplies. So we'll definitely do this analysis. I think your point is well taken, and we'll work with the internal
Some
auditor.
analysis to make sure that there's
Some
not
type of
something
review.
there that we should have seen just from the increase and from the comparison. There is that program that tells us what other school districts are
How other
spending.
districts do
Yes, and we're always are up there. We do dedicate most of our funds to direct instructional services, so you would see that our costs are slightly higher to peer groups.
So we'll bring a discussion on that. So if there's nothing else then on the estimated revenues and expenditures, I would like to request that the board turn to page 4.
Wait, let's go back on, you didn't change, in athletics it didn't change, but we're adding wrestling, aren't we adding the streaming thing? Where's that money coming if you're not making any change? You had, last year, we made an adjustment of 1.271 to 1.653, didn't you? That's what it says. Amended budget in May, compared to what we actually, original budget of 1.271.
You're looking at which line item? Payroll? contractual?
Athletics Fund, 181.
81.
181.
Transfers out.
Right, we increased their allocation, the board approved additional funds during the year.
So that's
Right, but
more money.
Why are we not budgeting that right now, and we added 2 more sports to it?
It is budgeted. That's more money.
No, Dr. Nelson,
Proposed budget,
to the
no, it's
original,
not.
we maintained the original budget.
You're requesting the same budget as last year. We had to make an amendment in May.
During the year.
Why are we
Less than
doing
the
that now?
amended.
Right.
At
And
this-
we added
Correct.
some more stuff to it.
At this point, it's less than the
Right.
amended budget.
No,
Correct, because we assumed the same, we were going to use the same original budget. So, point well taken.
Yeah, we'll take a look at
So
that.
it-
Really, we have to look at athletics anyway because of the meal money adjustment. And for the record, as we go to bring these options on Thursday, you know, for us, we were already pretty close to a balanced budget, so you'll see, I know you don't want to go to the next page yet, but it actually goes with what you're asking for to show everything we've already built in the budget.
I saw that, but I
Okay.
didn't see any cost of like the extra programs.
Right, but so like, for example, on page 4, I'm sorry to move on, but like you see swimming
Go ahead.
program approved 4/14/2016, item number 3, line item 3. So what I was going to say, Ms. Ayala, and please correct me if you feel like it's inaccurate, I don't want to mislead the board, but I feel like we've balanced the budget. Swimming is in the budget already, so even though we still have the same athletics budget, we can show that we've prepared to add $100,000 to create the swimming program. And if we were to add, let's say it's, you know, I don't know what the options are for meals for athletics, but I know we're going to bring options according to the wishes of the board. But let's say it's $50,000 to add $1 here, $1 per meal, and coaches. Well, then for us, we're going to have to go find somewhere to balance that.
Yeah, but-
And we're prepared to do that.
But just correct me if I'm wrong. But that means that if you're proposing a 1.271 as last year, and you made a recommendation, like you said, we already added the $100,000, so you already added to that.
We've absorbed
So
it.
that means you're cutting their budget by $100,000, because that means $100,000 they used last year, because they didn't have swimming, you're cutting that out because I'm using that $100,000 for swimming. So that means the money that I already had, because
We
you're not
didn't
add-
reduce any other sport.
You're
We
not-
didn't reduce
I
volleyball.
understand
We
that,
didn't.
but you're recommending the same budget that we
Yes.
had the previous year.
I can explain.
We spent 1.65, so we spent an extra $350,000. So what you're proposing is the same budget from last year.
Mm-hmm.
We still use more money, and you're adding swimming to it, so
Yes.
you're cutting another $100,000 from I don't know where. So that's really, you get me? If you would have.
I do, but I just know we haven't cut any sports or any athletic
No,
programs.
but you cut money there, yes.
No.
It's
The
a black and white
additional,
number.
Okay, give us a
Black
chance
and
to
white.
respond.
the coach and the materials and supplies are embedded in supplies and materials, and the position,
So we made a
the payroll
change to
cost.
how
So
we,
you moved it around.
Well, we
This,
just maintained the athletics fund alone, and then the positions are in the 199 fund, not in
The
181.
athletic
Oh, good
fund is
point. Good
only
point.
a transfer in of money to the
Okay.
account.
yes, and the FTE is somewhere else, which we add, that's 60 grand. That's 60 of the
So
100.
what's in that 1.2?
Let me muddy the water.
We have instructional materials and supplies, we have supplies for the swimming pool program, we have for custodial maintenance and operations that were provided. I'm trying to think.
Swimming?
So
We got
supplies
two-
and supplies and stuff for wrestling. Where is that coming from?
Yeah, we hadn't got that far on wrestling yet. If you remember, we talked about
We approved it at
swimming.
one school, no?
I thought that our plan was to
No, we
go
didn't?
forward with swimming, but we didn't vote on wrestling.
Thank you.
Dr. Moreno,
Mande.
you know,
But you see what I'm going
So
I
to...
do,
Garcia-
good point, good point.
Mr. Garcia has a very good point here. The additional monies for wrestling and those, the other activities, swimming, okay, that has to be included. Okay, now,
And they are.
if
It
it was
is.
absorbed somewhere else, it should be under athletics. De-absorb it from somewhere else and put it back in athletics, because you had it here in athletics before.
But this is only
That's
a
what he's saying, that's
transfer
what he's saying
amount.
right there. We spent, according to the report here, we have an amended budget right now of 1.6 in athletics, okay? And we're proposing 1.271. Now, here's a question. Maybe this is where it was absorbed.
I'm listening.
Did we spend this year, or are we spending the 1.271? In other words, what is the amount of money that is being left over in there? You follow what I'm saying? Even though we budgeted this year 1.271, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we budgeted 1.271. They are budgeting the same amount again next year because maybe we didn't spend this year, or we're not going to spend the 1.271. So therefore, there's going to be enough money in there to absorb
No.
the added
No, we did
expenditures.
spend the 1.271 because we had to
Well,
make
then
an
where is it?
adjustment to 1.6.
Exactly. We needed to
So-
put more money, right.
That extra $250,000 or $300,000 that we spent this year, what did we cut, what are we not going to do again?
Those were supported, remember, we increased appropriations by $2 million, and then we finished the year and we started making additional appropriations, and that's where we amend the budget and we put more money into the system. But we keep, when we start budgeting, we always consider the original budget first, unless the board approves items through the process, through the budget process.
So there's a possibility that you come during the year in April, May, say, I need
Correct.
to amend that budget by $200,000?
Yes, sir.
And you'll already have money found somewhere to do it because you have...
Yes, at that point in time, when they approach us, is generally around April, maybe February, April, we looked at, we analyzed the budget, and then we
fair.
start moving funds.
That's fair, I just...
Después hablo contigo,
Difference. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So then on page 4, you see some 13 items that we are planning for in the 2016-2017 school year that are I shouldn't say new initiatives, but they're basically new initiatives. I won't go over all of them, but obviously this board generously supported the staff in this district by increasing our health insurance employer contribution. We see things like increase in internet access. We've talked about this several times. Just like we're paying for our lights, we're also paying for our technology access for our kids to have access to the World Wide Web. I won't, if there's any of them that the board would like to discuss, we can discuss.
Well, whatever happened to number 4? We said we would support that initiative. And
Yes.
you took it out in here.
No, it's not taken out, it's done. It's already been done, that's why we,
Okay, it
Yeah.
says in there's crash and there's no money there.
right?
Yes,
That's
because it's
In
not
other
new
words,
new
you
money.
changed it into another. Okay, so
Right.
it was
There were
taken out
unfilled
here and
positions.
changed.
But it was funded, though.
Right.
Yeah, it was-
One question here.
Yes, sir.
One question. These requests have not been added yet to the final budget, am I correct?
Yes, sir. The
Yes,
ones
they
that
have.
said funded,
They have,
yes.
all these have. So like overtime,
I gotta like this, we had
Except-
more and the budget gets,
Except for the...
I got it.
Yes.
right.
how do you figure that out? In other words, we had expenditures and the budget comes down.
The budget, we added $2 million to the budget.
The budget didn't come down.
Right, it went up 2 million.
It went up,
Go ahead.
but it's
Okay.
already funded.
There you go.
So if there's no other questions on that, the one thing that I do want to note and ask our athletic director, students, I'm sorry, go
One more
ahead.
question. The outlay, capital outlay, what are we cutting? Because
Those were one-time expenditures. We purchased buses, if you recall, Suburbans, police
put it-
cars.
if I'm not mistaken, we put into our plan that we're going to purchase 4 to 5 buses on a yearly basis.
Correct, and that will be in the CIP. I don't know if,
So that'll come back later? Okay,
it should be in the CIP.
1.5
Okay.
million.
okay, thanks.
So then, what we wanted to really conclude our budget update with is, if I may, and I don't want to break any rules, but, so trustee Garcia reminded us that we're to bring an adjustment to meals for bus drivers, coaches, and students. Is that correct? And it needs to be an increase. And so I'm just laying the parameters so that athletics and finance and myself can coordinate options to bring for next Thursday. So it's for the bus drivers to, and I kind of want to say respectfully, it's a whole nother conversation about the policies and procedures by which we pay. You had a concern about they're working, coaches are coaching, they don't eat from 11 to 1, they don't get reimbursed, but that'll be a separate conversation that we will meet with the board on, preferably in student services. But in the meantime, we'll be looking for an adjustment on what we reimburse or pay for
Students, right.
coaches, and bus drivers.
We have more flexibility on the
Even
students.
looking at the possibility, and I don't know what you think about
That's
that.
what I'm talking
is not breaking it down to breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but giving just one number. You
Let's
know
do it.
what? You go on a date, that's your
I do.
number. You want to split it the way you want to split it, as long as at the end of the day, you bring me a receipt that that's what you did. Because that's what a lot of schools do. You know what, I'm going to give you, I'm going on a trip, here's $35. You spend what you want, breakfast, lunch, or dinner.
Not
You all are
necessarily.
mandating, you all are making it hard on yourself. You're mandating. You can only spend this here. You can only spend that.
Well, that
And
was as a
some people
result.
don't do that. They-
As a result of, we had to do that because we started seeing abuses of it. So-
Well, we haven't used athletic director and we haven't used thing. I remember in our thing, you know what, we had a budget.
On the
and-
students,
and
we
had
can.
parents donate, you know what, parents donated, I'm sending tacos for breakfast. So that money that we use for breakfast, we put it together with lunch so we can get our kids a good lunch and a good dinner.
On the students, definitely, we can work on that.
Yeah, I'm
But
talking
on
about
the,
students.
oh,
The other
okay.
one is something else.
On the other one,
students,
yes, we have to look at
My
regulations.
worry is more the kids than the adults. The adults they can do whatever they want. And usually when you go to track meet, the baseball, they feed them anyway. We feed all our coaches, Board Olympics, our coaches are fed. We provide steaks, we provide them, but the kids and a lot of kids don't have money to do that. That's what I say, if you just give them, here, this is how you spend it. How you spend it is up to you as long as you bring me receipts. Because parents donate breakfast and they use that money for lunch so they can have a decent lunch than just a sandwich.
We can certainly look at that.
We're definitely looking at that, and really the point that we need to make, Dr. Moreno, members of the board, respectfully, is like, this is it. We're going forward. Like, for example,
Good job.
I've had other trustees, very good job. I've had other trustees bring up ideas like they'd like to see every stipend reviewed and identified how we do stipends. Well, that's a big project, and really we're preparing a recommendation for the 2017-2018 budget, because I'd anticipate it'll take Human Resources and Finance 6 months to really bring that to the board and allow for discussion. Programs like Homebound, and several other departmental levels that have travel stipends, travel allowances, all that needs to be looked
And
at,
that-
but
and
not
that-
for this budget.
And that gives us time to see what happens with our enrollment.
Yes, ma'am.
Because
Dr.
that's
I like
important.
maybe, and I just to throw this out there, I like to see like in October or November, that the board can sit here and say, you know what, these are things we want to look at for our budget for 2018-19, that'll give, that we're not pressed for time, that you have enough time to go back and study it, go back and say, you know what, get the information together to actually do that. I think it's a good idea, and then putting their staff at the end, and well, do this, that, instead of, you know what, give them 7 months or 6 months. These are just ideas, get the information and
We can make a decision.
process right.
And it
I'd
is
like
a
to see
legislative year.
Minimum wage go up to $10 next year for all of our professionals.
It's, yes.
It might go
depend
by
on the
law,
election.
but I like to take it, if it's not, I'd like to see us do that anyway.
And remember that it's a legislative year, so we start just by,
Waiting on what they're going to tell us. right?
exactly, we continue with the status
But your point's well taken, we
quo.
can back it up. I would say right here in August, if I was a trustee, I'd start thinking, what are my initiatives that I want to review? I bring up stipends, I bring up travel allowance, because those are two big ones, but it's really the will of the board. Okay, may I proceed?
Yes.
So if there's no other questions on our budget, as we've already done several times, I want to commend our finance department, all of our departments really, for working on such a significant part of the board's responsibility to monitor a $204 million budget.
And HR, Dr. Nelson.
Right, I said all of
Yeah,
our
right.
departments, but thank you for clarifying.
Oh, I'm thinking about that.
So, moving on, item number 9 is discussion and presentation on the policy body-worn camera policy. Policy, on the police body-worn camera policy. Dr. Moreno, members of the board, as you know, our police department has been a leader in our country in having urban school districts. All of our officers we're moving toward budgeting eventually for all of our officers to have body-worn cameras. In this day and age of accountability, Chief Palomo's already clearly articulated part of the process for the grant that we've received and having the pilot programs that we're starting for the fall of 2016, 2017, mandate a board-approved policy on police body-worn cameras. So we have a draft that we've provided for the board to review. Our school district council is currently reviewing the policy as well, and we just wanted to afford the opportunity for Chief Palomo to provide a brief update, and we'll be asking for the board to consider acting on and approving this policy. It's based on a format that several school districts are using on this area, and we'll be recommending approval on the consent agenda. Chief Palomo, do you have comments or?
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, staff. A couple things need to happen before we can proceed on this body cam policy and procedure. The board has to approve CK local. There's been an amendment made to that. And basically what that says, if you're going to implement a body cam policy in your school district, you need to have a very specific policy procedure to do that. We've done that. It's been a long process. It took us over 3 months to develop that. I would like to recognize Ms. Ayala's staff, specifically Scott Roberts. We worked together as a team to put that policy together. It is a model policy for the nation. Department of Justice wants to post it on their website. As you're aware, we were the only school district in the nation to receive this grant. So the policy has been developed. There was a scorecard that was used by the Department of Justice. We did several drafts. The final draft was approved. There was a scorecard. We got 100 out of 100, which is the only policy in the nation that's received 100 out of 100.
I'm sorry, go ahead, Chief.
So we're ready to go forward. We just need the board to approve CK local, and then before we can actually roll out with the body cams, we need to have some very specific training with our officers on this policy. 16 pages long.
2 questions.
Good.
Real quick. How many cameras did we get?
Each officer is going to get cameras, sir. We haven't gone out for bid yet. 37.
37?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you on the policy, just in my mind, just thinking because of the policy. Is there a policy there that if the officer's not wearing, if the officer's wearing it, and for some reason, whatever they do, and he did not have it on, is there like a penalty? Is there something that...
Consequence for that?
Yeah, is there consequence that we can say, yeah, I'm going to turn it off, and it didn't work, or something like that?
That's a great question, sir. There is some very specific language and protocols when that camera is supposed to come on.
Okay.
If you don't turn it on, there is consequences for that, sir.
Okay, that's the only, the whole...
That's a good question.
The only thing that it's a back,
We need
that's
to
that.
get some publicity on being the only school district.
No, we definitely will follow up with that. We've gotten some already, but we'll definitely follow up. You know, the other thing I wanted to say is, obviously, I just want to be clear that on August 5th, our safety department, along with our chief of police, along with our communications department, will be having our active shooter training. As you know, I want to, on behalf of the entire school district, I've already spoke to Chief Palomo about some of the recent tragedies in Dallas, Texas. While our hearts and our thoughts and our prayers go out to everyone impacted by such a senseless tragedy, it is a grim reminder of the sacrifice that our law enforcement give each day. And so as a superintendent, I just want to make sure that we've practiced active shooter training, that we've I know we cannot consider every scenario, but we certainly have mental health issues throughout our community, and I just want to applaud our risk management director, our chief of police, and all those who will coordinate that on August 5th. We really are going to try and take that serious as we prepare for our school year. And we're very sorry for all the police officers who have been impacted with this ultimate sacrifice. May we proceed, Dr. Moreno?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 10 is discussion and presentation on the final completion and release of retainage in the amount of $3,707.30 to Davila Zertuche JV LLC for request for competitive seal proposal number 15-011, District Canopy Work Phase 2. Our construction management department made a presentation at our operations committee meeting. Feel that we're well on the way this project is pretty much complete, and we recommend approval of this release of the final retainage. Any comments or questions on number 10? If not, number 11 is discussion and presentation on a deductive change order number 001 from Davila Zertuche JV LLC Limited Liability Corporation. Request for competitive seal proposal number 15-011. Capital Improvement Plan District Canopy Work Phase 2 in the amount of $1,454 for unused contingency allowances included in the original contract amount. This is a deductive change order. We recommend approval. Any comments or questions? If not, may we proceed?
Yes.
Item number 12 is discussion and presentation on the potential sale of portable building located at Figueroa Middle School to the Blessed Sacrament School at fair market value. Apologize for the typographical error there. And we are recommending approval of this transaction between the Laredo Independent School District and Blessed Sacrament School. Figueroa is in the project of finishing their additional wing, and we're delighted to partner with our local parochial school and giving them access to this portable at fair market value. Any comments or questions? If not, may we proceed? Item number 13 is discussion and presentation of the district employee handbook for the 2016 and 2017 school year as presented. Would like to commend our Chief of Staff in the Human Resources Department for really coordinating an activity that has been requested by this board to really review, update, and streamline our policies and procedures that drive our employees' day-to-day operations. Also would like to acknowledge Trustee Jose A. Valdez, who has enlightened us with his expertise and his perspective on how we can become just stronger leaders of our employees. This handbook is a work in progress. I know that Mrs. Ramirez has some comments to make about it, but what we wanted you to do is review the draft and really give us your feedback on things that you would like to see us discuss, things you would like clarifications on, and we really hope it can help us organize our employees in a way that our students deserve. Mrs. Ramirez?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. Board members, you received a copy of this book. It is, like as Dr. Nelson said, a work in progress. We're finalizing it, bringing it to you for final approval as we are working through the document. Council is also going to be reviewing it just to make sure that we have all of the T's crossed and I's dotted. So if you do have something in here, as things have been coming up, questions that employees have, we've been trying to address that in the book. It's based on our district policy and just addresses some of those issues that are arising, questions that employees have and that administrators have in here. It does not address procedures per se, as much as it's just kind of a guideline on what the expectations are. To accompany this, I am working on an administrator manual on procedures and guidelines to address issues like attendance and tardiness and investigations and some of those things that I'll be going through with them as well.
As you work on those procedures, perhaps it's time for us to all start looking at regulations and what's in the system for Laredo ISD under regulations?
Sure.
Yes, ma'am, we are already working on that. In fact, the current regulation system has been collapsed, and we're starting a brand new website or link to administrative regulations. We started that right when I came on board, and all the directors are working on revamping all of the administrative regulations and reviewing all of those so that we can update them and have current regulations on a new web link that accompanies the website. So we're trying to bring everything up to speed and current so that everything is aligned, our handbook, the administrative manual, and administrative regulations.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May we proceed, Dr. Moreno?
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 14 is discussion and presentation of innovative courses to be implemented in 2016-2017. This agenda item was introduced at our Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting, and we have basically 3 areas where we're recommending innovative courses be approved by the board according to TEA's request in the Texas Education Code. In health science, we're recommending dosage calculations class for technical skills towards mathematics, and pharmacology. Mathematics for medical professions is a special course that we're requesting that integrates medical, physiological concepts of mathematics. And finally, an innovative course for our emergency medical technician class, which is the skills necessary for students to provide emergency medical care at a basic life support level. In our engineering program, our engineering magnet, we like to add an innovative course called DC Circuits. This course will provide students foundation needed for instrumentation and electronics and circuit analysis techniques. And finally, in our college and career preparation courses at all of our high schools, we'd like to create an innovative course that we call Path College Career Prep 1 through 4, which develops the skills and habits expected in college study and the workforce. This course will also be used to enhance our ACT and SAT developments and prepare kids to go straight into the workforce.
Okay. Dr. Moreno?
Yes.
In the latest book that we got, the Don't Star book, If you notice, there's an article there about an engineering school in El Dorado, Texas. I recommend that everybody looked at it.
Oh, in the TASB magazine that
Right,
each
the
trustee
magazine,
gets.
Yeah, the Lone Star.
It wasn't El Dorado.
The students there are doing some very exciting things in their engineering program. Space. So I recommend that everybody take a look at it.
It was well, definitely. May we proceed, Dr. Moreno?
Yes.
We'll be recommending approval of the innovative courses on the consent agenda. Item number 15 is discussion and presentation of the Region 1 Education Service Center Library Services and Media Cooperative Contract for 2016 and 2017 at an estimated cost of $76,586. You have the programs that our Director of Library and Media Services, Ms. Melly Pice, has coordinated, and we're recommending approval of this relationship with the Region 1 Co-op as presented in our Curriculum and Instruction Committee meeting. Any comments or questions? They're basically online databases.
Next item.
Item number 16 is discussion and presentation for the Memorandum of Understanding between the Laredo Independent School District and the Texas A&M International University CPR Training Center, the 2016-2017 school year at an estimated cost of $1,600 to the school district. Obviously, this is to coordinate all of the professional development and specific training that we receive to teach the CPR training courses throughout our athletic programs, medical, health services programs, and everyone else who receives CPR training. We recommend approval. And finally, if I may, Dr. Moreno, thank you. Item number 17 is discussion and presentation to approve the investment report for the third quarter ended May 31st, 2016, as required by the Public Funds Investment Act. Ms. Ayala?
Thank you, Dr. Nelson. I need to look for the investment. So, total interest earnings for the quarter were recorded at $296,168. The year-to-date interest earnings, we have it at $618,805. We're still, the average quarter yield was at 0.57%, still outperforming the average 3-month Treasury yield, which is at 0.27, the average 6-month Treasury yield at 0.42, and the one of the pools at 0.54%. So we're doing very well ahead of those indicators. Here is our composition. Most of our funds, about 75%, we have them in the bank or a pool, and that's because the interest rates are not attractive at this point in time. So we do have some investments, which is about 25% of our total portfolio at this time. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Ayala. Finally, Dr. Moreno, members of the board, yesterday we recognized in a smaller setting, but we certainly want to do it publicly, on July 8th, Trustee Hector Garcia celebrated a birthday, and I wanted to publicly wish him happy birthday. Let's give him a round of applause.
And just for the record, Josie did give me a cake after forgetting 2 years in a row.
On Monday, July 11th, I already mentioned, but I wanted to also again recognize our Chief Financial Officer who celebrated a birthday. And last but certainly not least, before we meet again as a board and staff, on July 21st, for the record, is our next meeting. It is the regular board meeting. It begins at 5:30 with student recognitions. We invite our entire public to join us and participate. But before then, our internal auditor has a birthday on July 19th, and we wanted to wish her a happy birthday as well. That concludes our presentation for this evening, Dr. Moreno.
That concludes our meeting.
That's it.
Meeting is adjourned.
200,000.
Dr. Nelson.